What's up, everybody? Hey, Tom Laird here, host of the Advice from a Call Center Geek podcast and founder of Expivia. For exceptional contact center outsourcing, trust Expivia. We're fully AI-driven, as all of you know, and can handle voice, email, chat, and all of your digital channels. Our 600-seat USA contact center is expert in healthcare, financial services, insurance, tech support, retail, and more. Experts on the NICE CX1 platform, we ensure seamless customer experiences. DM me or visit expiviausa.com for more.
This is Advice from a Call Center Geek, a weekly podcast with a focus on all things call center. We'll cover it all from call center operations, hiring, culture, technology, and education. We're here to give you actionable items to improve the quality of yours and your customers' experience. This is an evolving industry with creative minds and ambitious people like this guy. Not only is his passion call center operations, but he's our host. He's the CEO of Expivia Interaction Marketing Group and the Call Center Geek himself, Tom Laird.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Advice from a Call Center Geek, the call center and contact center podcast, where we try to give you some actionable items to take back in your contact center, improve the overall quality, improve the agent experience, hopefully improve the customer experience as well. My name is Tom Laird. I am the CEO here at Expivia Interaction Marketing. Expivia is a 500 growing to 600 seat call center outsourcer located here in Northwestern Pennsylvania. All right, let's benchmark some SLAs. How about that? Let's start some arguments within the community. Every time I do something like this on LinkedIn, it's a little bit of an argument, as there's so much, I guess, I don't know. There's many opinions on what a world-class call center SLA is, what an average SLA is, because there's so many different variables at play here. I normally hate this question and this topic, but it's come up a couple times. I think that there are some questions on this, so I'm going to give you my opinion on this. So this is the official Tom Laird Expivia Advice from a Call Center Geek SLA benchmarking episode. Okay. I think I have a little bit of say or a little bit of experience in this, as we are a BPO, right? And I see a ton of different clients with different channels, from healthcare to voice to tech support, right, to financial services. And everybody has a different kind of way of looking at this. So taking all that information, this is kind of what I've come up with and we've come up with as an organization for what we think is a benchmarked SLA for all these different channels. All right, I'm going to get into it. Love to hear your opinion. When I post this on LinkedIn, make sure that you say, Tom, I think you're crazy, or Tom, I think you're on target here. All right. I believe that the average quote unquote good voice SLA, right? So this is where your standard is, that is good, right? The first thing that you should be looking at, this isn't bad. This is, I don't want to do white glove, but what is the area that I think is a good service level is an 80-30. 80% of the calls answered within 30 seconds or less. Where does an 80-30 come from? I believe it came from way back in the day. AT&T actually was the ones that started that, right? But for us, and for, I would say 80% of our clients, they dictate an 80-30. That's kind of the industry average, right? Is an 80-30. If you want white glove service, it goes higher, right? Meaning it will be a 90-10, or we have clients that are at a 95. 90% of the calls answer within 5 seconds or less. How do you do that? Well, you have to be really, really good with your staffing. You have to be really, really good with how you're routing calls as well, and using all the tools that you have to make sure that you're hitting these calls. There's also, I think, again, 80-30 is where you're at. If you're doing that, you're in a really good spot. 90-10, 95, if you want something that's pretty crazy and more white glove. But we also have clients that say, hey, we can't afford that. We can't staff to an 80-30. And I think the new benchmarking that's starting to happen is people starting to look at sentiment scores based on time in queue, right? So we can look at the average time in queue, and when does the service level, start to go south. So when that happens, right, we'll say, hey, listen, we can probably do an 80-120, right? Because your customers are willing to stay on that in queue up to a minute 20 before they get ticked off, right? That's something to kind of look at, and I think we're evolving service level SLAs with that. All right, now email. I think email, this really varies widely on how clients would like it answered. I believe, though, that the average service is 1 day or 24 hours, right? So that's kind of average. Good service, right? Or a kind of a higher SLA or higher level SLA is within 3 hours of them sending that email. And kind of that white glove is either instant or within 30 minutes. And that's kind of what we put in our contracts, based on what clients want. Normally it's 1 day. If you want something a little bit higher, we can do it within 3 hours. If you want something even higher, it's instant or up to 30 minutes. Obviously, all of that affects your staffing and who's attacking those emails. Chat, we treat it like voice, right? So it's the same type of SLAs that we're looking for, right? So an 80-30, is your kind of regular, your normal. And then, a 90-10 or a 95 for something that's a little bit, more, again, white glove or higher end. You can take multiple chats. We normally do not, depending on the client, take more than 4 chats at a time. But that's kind of how we staff based on chat volume to an 80-30 or to a 90-10. All right. I get this question a lot too is how do you benchmark QA in scoring with QA? This becomes a little bit of a headache because everybody does this differently, right? Some of you out there are using a 100-point system. Some of you could be at a 135-point system. Some of you are doing ABC or 1, 2, 3 or 1 through 5 or 1 through 10, right? So it's kind of difficult to say, let's benchmark this. But so this is how I'm going to do it. Let's just take a scoring system that's, 100%, right? So there's like 100 points right within that scoring system. And normally what I will say in my center is anything that 85% or above is good. Right? Anything that is 85 or I guess 84% or lower is below the standard that we want, right? So that's something that we would make sure that got to the floor that would be corrected. 90% is is really above the standard, right? So, if we have somebody that is dealing with a higher end client, we're looking at 90%. If we're looking at white glove and they're paying for white glove and they're paying for servicing and we have the best agents that we can possibly have, we hold our agents to a 95% or plus for those types of programs. The other thing that we will kind of benchmark or monitor as well is auto fails, right? And, depending on your QA or depending on what the client really wants, and some of these have, there's a culture of, forgiveness, right? Of understanding that there's a learning curve. And there's some clients that say, hey, listen, it's my way or the highway, do this, or these reps are off, right? So we have to look as well as how many auto fails do they get until they're kind of off the program, right? And again, that doesn't happen. We're talking once everything is learned and maybe they're 6 months to 8 months into the program. If you have 3 auto fails in a week for not, doing something that is vitally important, like verifying information, right? Verifying name, verifying account, right? If that happens 3 times in a week, again, they're probably either going to be suspended or there's something that's happening with that. So we also look to benchmark auto fails and make sure that, those are within alignment of what we need or what should happen. And again, no client, no matter what, should have 3 auto fails in a week, but you kind of get my point. That's kind of the extreme of what I'm saying. All right, sentiment, stuff that you're not thinking about. Right. And again, we can talk about CSAT, we can talk about NPS as well, right? And kind of look at that. Again, those vary widely. And I do like those a little bit because, right, they're not just talking totally about the agent, right? They're talking about the whole customer journey. But still, I still think that you get some ticked off people and they're the ones that really either hammer you on a CSAT or an NPS or the ones that really love you, right? And they kind of inflate your numbers as well. So sentiment scores is basically, it's pure. It's done from the system. It's done through AI. It's done through making sure that it's looking at what words the customer and the agent are saying and, giving you numbers. When we talk about agent sentiment, right? So what we like to do is we benchmark this and we have found that we want an 80% positive and a 5% or less negative. Right? There's obviously some margin of error on both those numbers. So, we probably normally say, we definitely do say plus or minus like 5%, right? So we give them a little bit of leeway, but we really want 80%. And we're looking at both, right? You're not just looking at positive, but we're looking at negative as well. And then, the things in the middle like mixed sentiment and things like that, right? They kind of, make sure that it's okay that they're in there because you're only trying to hit an 80% positive. And then when it comes to customers and customer sentiment, it's really difficult because it really is all over the board. Depending on if we got the program where a customer maybe just didn't have the tools, they didn't have the manpower, and customers are really ticked. We've seen agent sentiment as low as 15% positive, right? So only 15% of the customers when they call in were positive, and negatives as high as 60 to 70%. And we've seen customers that have started with an 80% positive with their positive sentiment with their customers. So again, I would say there's not a number to benchmark that, but every client gets benchmarked differently. So meaning we'll take at least 4 to 6 weeks worth of data, look at where that customer sentiment is, and then look at all the trending keywords and how can we try to eke that up, right? So we'll benchmark it and then we'll work, but every client is different when it comes to sentiment. And I think that's maybe the good thing about it, right? It's not just this blanket number that we're throwing on it. It's really specific to everybody's program, everybody's client base, all the actions that you've taken or haven't taken. It's kind of all thrown into this one number that I think can really give you really good insights into what's going on. So again, that's my benchmarking, right? When it comes to voice, email, chat, QA, and sentiment. Again, if you guys disagree, let me know. But I think if those of you who are new or have never really looked at what service levels we should have, hopefully this gives you a little bit of value and you can start that process. Thanks, guys. And again, I will talk to you next week.